Hello again. It's been a while, but it's not because I haven't been doing anything. It's just I've been doing so much that I haven't really taken the time to film. So this is going to be a little bit of an update, and kind of sorry you didn't join me for a lot of the fun, but really it's been all about rust removal. So last time we spoke, I didn't have this much of the trunk missing, but I do now. I spoke to a body guy, and he's actually going to be helping me out welding in these panels, and he gave me some direction on where to cut, what to cut, how to cut. So I basically followed his directions, and here is where we're at with the trunk for right now. I'm actually glad that I went this far because I knew there was rusty areas here. What I didn't know is that there was some over here where there was a bracket from basically the trunk to the taillight panel. Another area that kind of had me concerned was the weather strip kind of lip area had some rust in it, but I have a new taillight panel and we're gonna get a whole new panel put in. However, I've got to weld some braces to keep things nice and straight before I go in and just yank that out, or this back end will just kind of be all flimsy. Working our way up, this was an area of a previous repair. You can see all these awesome holes that someone used to basically pull out dents. But I do have a new quarter panel section coming. And talking to the body guy, he said that this area right here will be much easier to cut out and replace than to try and spend all this time fixing up this nasty stuff. Further up, you can see we've hand sanded pretty much down to bare metal here. And that's just because this stuff is so, thin that I don't want to mess it up with a sandblaster, especially this roof. So this has all been by hand. There's a little bit more damage right here from a previous repair, but the actual denting of the body isn't horrible. So we'll get these all welded in and then sand it out and smooth it out. This quarter panel is looking really good. There's one area looks like previous body work, dent work, or whatever, but other than that, it's nice and straight. And here's my floor, or lack thereof. We're missing a section. You can kind of see the line where my new floor pan goes to. So I've cut out a lot, but also just kind of keeping a little bit more. If I need to cut out, I can, but I'll let my body guy kind of give me the ultimate decision on that. Inside, it's been all about scraping out the seam sealer. The driver's side floor pan is pretty darn good, minus this area right here, but I've tapped on it and it's pretty much just the surface, so we're good there. Same thing here, seam sealer, scrape, scrape, scrape. This was a big one. This is a pretty common area. There's a little top hat piece right here. And this is supposed to drain out, like when water comes down from the windshield into here and drains out this little area right here. But it gets clogged up and it just holds a whole bunch of stuff, pine needles, dirt, debris, what have you, and it starts to rust. So in my infinite wisdom, I cut it out, and instead of taking out pop rivets of this top section, I just started cutting stuff, which may have not been my best idea. However, they now have replacement panels, so I've got 2 new ones of those coming. And lastly, I just finished this up tonight, and that was popping out the battery apron. If you remember previously, there was a section around here where the battery sat where a lot of the acid rusted a lot of the stuff out. So I've got a new panel, a new support bracket, new battery tray, all that stuff. And I'll show you some of my favorite tools that I've found to use getting all of these spot welds and stuff out. Maybe it'll help you out. So I invested in this. It was actually recommended to me by there's a Mustang how-to restoration group on Facebook, and I made a post asking what people's favorite spot weld remover tool was, and this right here was highly recommended. So this kit comes with a few different sizes, but you can see what these do. They're basically little mini hole saws. It's got a spring-loaded centering, I'll call it a punch for lack of a better term, But for instance, you find a spot weld and you tap a center on there, and you would push down on this, and as it twists around, it cuts out. Now, to see what it looks like finished, you can see it more or less leaves the weld in there, and you just cut around it. And this is a nice way to preserve what's underneath, and then you just take your grinder and kind of grind away at that stuff. So kind of a cool trick is if you get underneath what you're trying to pop out and put a little bit of pressure underneath it, just as this starts to break free, it pops. So this has definitely been a huge time saver. I highly recommend it. I think this whole kit was about $80, but I know you can get a certain size that you find works. For whatever reason, I ended up finding that this 5/8 was my favorite. It just seemed to be just the right size to get around. There were a couple that I could do a little less, but the 5/8 side definitely seems to work. So I know they make cold chisels, but these are pretty cheap wood chisels. And honestly, I found these to be really, really helpful when, say for instance, if I was trying to remove this piece, I get underneath it and tap on it and it starts to lift up. These definitely seem to help. I don't have any air at my house, which will kind of lead me into the next set of tools that I end up using a lot. And of course, that is a series of battery-powered tools. This has been really nice and helpful. I use this to basically more or less remove some paint, some dirt and rust to show up the spot welds. And then there's a battery powered grinder. This is helpful, but most of my grinding and cutoff has been done with just this. I've got it was a 40 grit flap wheel, but not anymore. And then these have been my go-to. As always, make sure you wear safety protection because this stuff can fly apart and hurt you. There's my box of tools. So we're about a week away from getting it into the sandblasting place. I thought about putting it on a dolly that I just got. I may not be able to make that in time because I have to take the suspension off, but this is that dolly, so those will hook up to the rear leaf spring brackets, and then this goes where your lower arms for your front suspension are. I'll probably get it on that before it's time to go into a garage for the winter. So like I said, overall, I know I haven't been posting lately, but a lot of work has been getting done. In fact, during my lunchtime and a little bit hours after work, I actually took the time and went through my rear axle, not that one, but this one. And I ended up going through it, checking out the bearings, putting new pinion seal, axle seal in it, as well as getting rid of the nasty rust, painting it, sealing it up. I'm going to be working on the transmission next. So those are all little things I can do. All in all, it's just about making a little bit of progress, forward progress. That's the key. So I gotta admit, at first when I had a lot of the discoveries of the more and more rust, which shouldn't have been a surprise, but it was, I was pretty bummed out, and it kind of like took the wind out of my sails. But in the end, it's just about moving forward and tackling one little thing at a time. So the other night's goal was getting the trunk out. I did that. Tonight's goal was getting the battery apron out. Got that out. And every little day, if I can just make a little goal and achieve that, then it makes me feel better, and we're still going forward with the restoration. So what's cool is we're almost at the part where it's completely torn down to where the only way to go is start putting it back together, and that's our goal. So I'm hoping that the next time you see me, you'll have a sandblasted car and maybe even some metal work done. And then the goal is to get it primed up, put it in a garage for the winter, and do suspension and transmission and hopefully engine, which is still at the machine shop, by the way. I heard they just got it cleaned. So we're getting there. Thanks for hanging out, and feel free to leave any comments, tips, or tricks, or what your favorite tools are to use when you're doing this kind of repair. All right, guys. Until next time.